On June 19, 2024, in Pyongyang, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un signed the Treaty of Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between Russia and North Korea. On the surface, this move seemed illogical, since, according to Reuters and the Arms Control Association, supplies of North Korean ammunition, missiles, and artillery systems to Russia had started long before the official agreement, in 2023. So, the treaty was not a prerequisite to North Korean military support, and it must have served another purpose. Just a few months later, in October, South Korean intelligence reported the deployment of North Korean troops to Russia, estimated at 10,000 to 12,000 personnel. At the end of October, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stated that North Korean units had been stationed in the Kursk region, and some troops had undergone training in Russia's Far East. Finally, in April 2025, both North Korea and Russia publicly acknowledged the involvement of North Korean soldiers in combat operations in the Kursk region. The news of North Korean troops being sent to fight alongside Russia triggered international debate and raised speculation. In particular, US State Department officials and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte interpreted the deployment as a sign of Russia's vulnerability and a severe shortage of manpower. However, the number of North Korean troops was clearly too small to bring about any decisive change on the battlefield. Even US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin admitted he could not see the point of these actions. This raises the question: what if the real goal was different? What if sending North Korean troops to the Kursk region was not so much about helping Russia, but rather about serving North Korea's own interests? After all, a strategic partnership agreement and the deployment of 10,000 troops cannot fundamentally shift the balance in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but their role might prove to be crucial elsewhere, on the Korean Peninsula. The current balance of power on the Korean Peninsula was shaped during the Korean War of 1950–1953. The fighting ended with an armistice, which still holds today. Technically, both sides remain at war, separated by a demilitarized zone. Since then, the survival of both Koreas had depended on external military and political backing, on one side from the US and on the other from the USSR and China, as per the 1961 treaties. The Friendship Treaty with Russia, signed in 2000, no longer called for automatic entry into war, but instead focused on political coordination and security consultations. Over 70 years of division have led to significant differences between North and South Korea. North Korea lags far behind the South in almost every key area: economy, technology, infrastructure, weapons quality, and military training. As a striking example, South Korea's defense budget stands at about $45.5 billion, while North Korea's is roughly $4 billion. According to the 2025 Global Firepower Index, South Korea's military ranks 5th in the world, while North Korea's is only 34th. South Korea possesses advanced hardware, including K-2 Black Panther tanks, F-35A and KF-21 Burami fighter jets, Patriot PAC-3 and LSAM air defense systems. North Korea relies on sheer numbers. Its armed forces total about 1.33 million personnel, and in terms of manpower, artillery and rocket systems, it ranks among the world's leaders. However, most of its equipment is outdated, and its air force and air defense are inferior to those of the South. As a result, it's generally accepted in the global community that in the event of a military clash, South Korea holds a decisive advantage thanks to its technological superiority, modern weaponry, and support from allies. North Korea's nuclear weapons, despite being a serious threat, are unlikely to be used directly on the peninsula, as this would have catastrophic consequences for the North itself. Simply put, the only thing ensuring North Korea's survival in the 21st century is the goodwill of one ally, China, aside from South Korea's unwillingness to inflict and suffer heavy losses. There is no such thing as a truly peaceful country. Some can afford to wage war, financially, militarily, and in terms of losses, while others cannot. The Korean War armistice was in effect an admission by both sides that neither could achieve a military victory. The future of the peninsula remained unresolved until by chance geopolitics tipped the balance in favor of one side. Most analyses portray a future Korean War as a catastrophe with massive casualties and destruction. For example, Rand Corporation analysts estimate that in a full-scale conflict, hundreds of thousands could die within the first weeks of fighting. This makes such a scenario unlikely. Yet, as recent conflicts, like the war in Ukraine, demonstrate, unlikely does not mean impossible. A modern conflict on the Korean peninsula would look very different from the war of the 1950s. All-out war has become prohibitively expensive on every level, and a new feature of 21st century conflict is hybrid warfare, meaning limited operations, proxy actions, and strikes on infrastructure. If fighting does break out, it's far more likely to involve localized deployments, especially given that even during the armistice there are contested areas like the Yellow Sea Islands. For instance, in 2010, North Korea shelled Yangpyeong Island, causing both civilian and military casualties, but this incident didn't escalate into a full-scale conflict. Against this backdrop, the cooperation agreement with Russia fundamentally shifts the balance of power and alters the readiness of both Koreas for a potential confrontation. Generals are always preparing for the last war, but this time North Korean troops are getting first-hand experience in a new style of warfare. The partnership with Russia and the participation of North Korean units in combat, where drones, surveillance and modern communications are widely used, has given North Korean forces hands-on experience in modern military tactics and raised their overall readiness. According to South Korean intelligence, since fall 2024, North Korean specialists in SATBEL-4 and SATBEL-9 drone systems, electronic warfare and engineering have been sent to Russia. Their main assignment is to master up-to-date combat techniques, adapt to new tactical frameworks and gain frontline experience that would be impossible inside North Korea itself. In practice, this means operating kamikaze drones similar to the American MQ-9 Reaper and RQ-4 Global Hawk, as well as drones armed with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. North Korean units are also learning to handle Russian electronic warfare systems and to counter modern FPV drones. Russia, meanwhile, is supplying North Korea with advanced technology, including components to upgrade armored vehicles and air defense systems, and is helping launch joint drone production in North Korea. In 2025, North Korea began producing the KN-25 multiple launch rocket system, which can hit targets up to 380 kilometers away and uses satellite guidance for better accuracy. As a result, while North Korea was once seen as a lagging actor, dependent on allies and focused on defense and deterrence, as of 2025, it has conducted exercises with units trained in Russia for the first time, practicing offensive operations with SATBEL drones, electronic warfare, and new artillery. But this is only part of the new alliance impact. Until recently, South Korea's strategic calculations considered only North Korea's own capabilities. Now, however, Russia's potential support has become an additional factor. In a major crisis, Russia could provide Pyongyang with weapons, equipment, intelligence, and, in theory, direct military support. Essentially, Article 4 of the treaty is similar to NATO's Article 5. It allows for military and other assistance by any available means in the event of an armed attack on either party. There is no guarantee that Russia would intervene directly in a Korean conflict, but the mere existence of the agreement already shifts the strategic balance. This alone is enough to make South Korea think twice before using force or launching an invasion of the North, as such actions are now far riskier. In war, resources are always scarce, because otherwise wars just end quickly with one side's victory. The North Korean contingent sent to Russia has certainly been useful for the Russian military, but it hasn't been a decisive factor on the front lines. The real importance of the Russia-North Korea strategic partnership is not just in providing military aid to Moscow. More importantly, it's about giving North Korean troops the opportunity to gain real combat experience and secure a stronger regional standing for North Korea. Once seen only as a pawn in great power politics, North Korea is now emerging as a player in its own right. Even a small nation can cast a long shadow when it rises at the right moment.